Hello, this is Dr. Mears. Today we are going to be writing quadratic equations using intercept form. Y equals A times the quantity x minus m times the quantity x minus n. First, the rundown. These are my steps. I did not get these steps in a book. They're just steps that I put together. So in order to write a quadratic equation in intercept form, you need the x-intercepts and one point on the curve. This point could come from the y-intercept, or it could come from the vertex, or it could come from just another point on the curve. So we have a couple different things that we can choose from. So our steps, first we set each x-intercept equal to 0. Then we set each equation equal to 0, remembering inverses. Then we substitute into y equals a quantity x minus m times the quantity x minus n. Now on to step 4, use the last point, the point that they give you, either the y-intercept or the vertex or another point on the curve, and we're going to substitute the x and y and solve for a. Finally, we're going to put everything together by substituting a back into the equation we got for number 3. So let's go. Writing a quadratic equation given the x-intercepts and the y-intercept. So notice here's the first x-intercept and the second. I read my graph always from left to right. That's why I labeled this as the first one. And I also have my y-intercept. This is 0, -8. So first, our first step was to set each x-intercept equal to 0. So equal to x. Sorry, equal to x. X equals -4 and x equals +1. The second is that we have to set each equation equal to 0. So this is where inverses come into play. Adding 4 to both sides, this is now 0. Bring down our equal sign. X plus 4, just write it as you see it. -1, inverse of plus. So this is 0 equals x minus 1. The next step, step 3, is to substitute into our equation. So we're going to write y equals a. Instead of x minus m, we're going to put x plus 4, except instead of x minus n, we're going to put x minus 1. So that's what I mean by substituting it in. Now we need to use the third point they gave you. This point is the y-intercept. So we're going to use 0, -8. And here is the deal. 0 is our x. So we're going to use this equation, and anywhere we see an x, we're going to put a 0. And anywhere we see y, we're going to put a -8. So we're substituting the y in, and we're substituting the x's in. Now what I can do is solve. So I'm going to solve this out by hand. 0 plus 4 is 4. 0 minus 1 is -1. 4 times -1 is -4. Now this is multiplication. Usually you see it written such as a form of this, 4a equals -8. This is how we're used to seeing it, everybody. This means the same exact thing. So what we do here, we undo the multiplication using the inverse division so that we can find the value of a to be 2. We would do the same thing here. You're very used to doing it given in this order. If you would like to change it around, that's absolutely fine. So dividing both sides by -4, the negative goes with it, we have a as 2. So now we have to go back to that step 3 and substitute our a in. So y equals 2, x plus 4, x minus 1. And here is our final answer. And that's with the y-intercept. Okay, let's go to the next one. Writing a quadratic equation given, I forgot the n, I'm sorry, the x-intercepts and the vertex. I think I do that on the next one too. Okay, so we have the x-intercepts, but now the point that they give us is the vertex. Notice down here, it's -1.5 and -12.5. And hey, decimals are okay, and that's why I did this example. I'm going to show you a calculator with this one. Okay, so first let's set each x-intercept equal to 0. X equals -4, x equals 1. We're used to this part. We just did it in the previous example. That's why it feels familiar. Then, using our inverses, we're going to set each equation equal to 0. Now, substituting it in again. All right, so we're here looking for a. Instead, this time we're given an x of 1.5. So anywhere you see an x, we're going to substitute in 1.5. Don't forget your plus 4 times -1.5 minus 1. So don't forget these other numbers. You've got to put them in. And this is multiplication. Now, wherever you see a y, you're going to put in -12.5. Please notice how I put the x in automatically. If you're going really fast, sometimes you flip your x's and y's. So that's why I look at my x, I put it in, I write everything out. I look at my y, I put it in. So I keep everything straight. Okay. So now I'm not going to solve this by hand. What I'm going to do is I'm going to just write out this first part. I'm going to do this part in my calculator. I don't want to mess around with doing it 3 to 4 steps. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn my calculator on. And I'm going to do parentheses, negative, and be careful because your negative is down here. -1.5 plus 4 times -1.5 minus 1. And be careful. So I have my -1.5 plus 4, and I use my parentheses to represent multiplication, -1.5 minus 1. I highly recommend you doing it this way every single time. I don't want you to get these wrong just because you're negatives or you didn't add correctly or you didn't multiply out correctly. So please, I would encourage you to do it this way. Just put everything in just like you see it here, except no A. You just put in this part of it. And I get -6.25. -6.25. Awesome. This is multiplication, so I am going to divide it. And you're going to always divide it. You're going to find yourself doing these steps many times. This crosses out, and we're left with what 1a represents. So -12.5 divided by -6.25. Or you could press second answer down here. That's fine. But let's divide that out, and we get 2. And we should have gotten 2 because that's what we got last time. So a equals 2. Going back to that third step, y equals 2, x plus 4, x minus 1. Here is your answer. And you will notice that it's the same exact graph. We receive the same exact answer as we did here. Same exact graph, same exact answer, except we were given the vertex this time, the vertex, the minimum, not the y-intercept. So we still did the same process, we just had a different point on our curve. And that brings us to our last example. Our last example is writing the quadratic equation, I forgot the end again, sorry, given the x-intercepts and a point on the graph. So now, here's our two x-intercepts. Instead of the y-intercept, instead of the vertex, because you might not be given those, you can be given a random point, but it has to be on this curve. The random point that they gave us here was -3, -8. So let's go through our steps. Set at each x-intercept equal to x. Use inverses to set each one equal to 0. Substitute into the equation. Okay, now here's our point. The x value is -3. -3 plus 4. -3 minus 1. The y value is -8. -8. So in place of the x, I put the -3. In place of the x, I put the -3. In place of the y, I put the 8. Now what I'm going to do is I'm not going to do this out by hand. I'm going to bring down the -8 in the a. put parentheses here because I'm going to be substituting a number. And I'm going to do this part in my calculator. So let's do this part in the calculator. Parentheses, making sure this is the negative. Negative 3 plus 4, end parentheses. Open parentheses up again. Negative 3 minus 1. Is it correct? Do I have my negatives and my minuses all correct? I do. Enter. Negative 4. Beautiful. So now this is multiplication, as it always will be. You will always divide, making sure the negative goes with that 4. Making sure these have to be the same. A, same sign. A equals, and number. Negative 8 divided by negative 4. If you want to do that in your calculator, it's fine, but it is going to give you a positive 2. Go back to step 3. Y equals, whoops, almost did it perfect. Y equals 2, x plus 4, x minus 1. And as you will see, this is the same answer that you received from the previous two, except we had a point on the graph this time. We didn't have the y-intercept or the vertex. So same process, we just used a different point every time. We got the same answer because it was the same graph. Okay, so here's some practice for you. If you are in my class, you do have the slide deck. So in speaker notes, you have the answers. But if you're not in my class, thank you for watching. I appreciate you. And hopefully I do help. But these are the answers to these 3. So if you want to pause and try them out, good luck. And I hope this helped.